Chapter 425 Brothers acknowledge each other. However, Hua Yuao felt that something wasn't right for some reason. It was like some aspect had been miscalculated. This was what the power of destiny was telling him. However, it was very unclear. He only felt something, but he couldn't think of what was wrong. The Sun Moon Empire didn't seem to be in a rush to attack. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed, and the Sun Moon Empire still seemed to have no intention of invading further. All surveillance at the borders was performed using aerial surveillance Sol tools, and the Sun Moon Empire's Sol engineering legions filled the airspace completely. This meant that any surveillance attempts by the Daluo Empire against the Sun Moon Empire's forces would be futile. The White Tiger Duke did send some powerful individuals to survey the situation, but there was a high concentration of aerial surveillance Sol tools and thermal detectors over the Sun Moon Empire's forces. If they got close to a certain region, they would immediately be discovered. Once discovered, they would be attacked by powerful Sol tools. What exactly is the Sun Moon Empire doing? Even if they just wanted to consolidate their borders, wouldn't 3 days be enough? Since they started this war, they should have completed their preparations and been ready to launch an all-out attack now. However, why aren't they doing anything? Why did they give the Daluo Empire enough time to gather and deploy their military? Hua Yuao had been thinking about this for many days, and the discomfort he felt grew more intense. However, this was obviously an advantageous situation for the Daluo Empire. The longer their enemies delayed, the closer their reinforcements would be. Within these 3 days, 6 Soulmaster legions, the Northwestern Field Army, and the Western Field Army had already gathered. Along with the original Soulmaster Legion, there were now 8 other Soulmaster legions. This already comprised 80% of the Daluo Empire's fighting strength. Even though the first Soulmaster Legion had suffered great losses, they still possessed fighting strength. The current lineup showed the determination of the Daluo Empire. Princess Juju personally led the frontline forces and had already met up with the White Tiger Duke in Dawn City. She was also the commander of all 6 Soulmaster legions that had arrived as reinforcements. After all, she couldn't just hand over such great authority to the White Tiger Duke. Xu also received news that the Doling Empire's reinforcements had arrived in the Daluo Empire's territory. They split into 2 waves with the Daluo Empire's own reinforcements and were rushing to the front line now. It seemed like the situation was slowly stabilizing. In slightly more than 10 days, all the reinforcements would have arrived. Adding in the Daluo Empire's preparations, the Sun Moon Empire wouldn't find it easy to succeed in their invasion. Hua Yuao idled over these few days. After becoming Xu Yan's bodyguard, and as war was about to break out, he didn't need to train every day. He just needed to follow Xu Yan as she attended meeting after meeting. However, he and Daluo couldn't listen in on the exact details. Given their status, Hua Yuao spent more of his time on his own cultivation. As for his identity, Xu Yan stopped probing. Whether it was her or Daluo, they treated him as someone sent by the White Tiger Duke. Otherwise, how could they explain the conditions surrounding Daluo's White Tiger awakening? After Daluo's martial soul awakened, his cultivation improved by leaps and bounds under Hua Yuao's guidance. He was about to reach rank 40. Once he obtained 4 soul rings, he could become a soul ancestor. He was also very hardworking. Unless Xu Yan summoned him, he would remain in his room to cultivate. Hua Yuao was also very reassured that his little brother was so hardworking. At least he hadn't wasted his energy teaching him. In the blink of an eye, another 3 days passed. The first batch of reinforcements from the Heavenly Soul Empire, consisting of 30,000 soldiers, had already arrived. Furthermore, they brought 20 Juga Divine crossbow cannons along, which came from the Tang Sect. The Daluo Empire had been attacked by the Sun Moon Empire, and Shrek Academy naturally knew about this. After the Academy discussed it with the Tang Sect decided to supply all types of soul tools to the Daluo Empire first, especially their Juga Divine crossbow cannons. The effective range of such a cannon was impressive, which made it very useful for defensive purposes. This theory had been tested against the beast hide from the Great Stardo Forest. Why has there been no movement yet? This is weird. Daluo sat on his bed and muttered. He had just eaten his dinner. At this time every day, he would ask Hua Yuao for guidance. Hua Yuao looked outside and saw that it had already turned dark. He agreed, yes. It has been 7 days since the war has started. Even if they were consolidating their foundations, the Sun Moon Empire's next attack should have started already. Daluo said, the most hateful thing is that those fellows completely cut off all our surveillance of them. We have no news of what's happening at the border. I really don't know what they want. Soul tools are too despicable. Extensive surveillance has already been performed on the borders of our Daluo Empire and the Heavenly Soul Empire. It was already very difficult to find out what the Sun Moon Empire was up to back then. Those fellows are too mysterious. I don't know what intentions they're harboring. After hearing Daluo's words, Hua Yuao's body suddenly shook. Mysterious and sealing all surveillance? Don't tell me there's some kind of scheme. Luolai, continue your cultivation. I'll go out and take a look. Daluo was stunned for a moment. Brother Dong, what are you doing? Are you going to the front line? It's different now than before. The sky is filled with their aerial surveillance soul tools. Once they discover you, it'll be difficult for you to come back. Don't take the risk. Recently, the two of them had drawn closer to each other, especially after the war started. Hua Yuao stopped beating him up, and even passed down all types of cultivation methods and experiences to him without holding back anything. To Daluo, Hua Yuao was both a mentor and a friend right now. Naturally, he didn't want Hua Yuao to do anything reckless. Furthermore, he and Xu Yan already treated Hua Yuao as someone sent by the White Tiger Duke. Tang Dong was definitely not a spy. If he were a spy, there wasn't any use for him to be a lolly soldier. Given his abilities, he would at least be part of a Soulmaster Legion for him to be of any use, and to obtain useful information. However, he stayed in the recruits camp, and only guided Daluo every day. Whoever it was, they would certainly think that Hua Yuao was an instructor the White Tiger Duke had especially found to guide Daluo. The only problem was that he was a little too young. As for his violent teaching methods, it was probably because he had been beaten into a martial soul evolution. Daluo didn't hate him for using such a method. He felt that his improvement seemed to be slower now than when he was being beaten up by Hua Yuao. Hua Yuao smiled and shook his head before saying, don't worry, I'll be fine. I'm just going out to take a look. Let me follow you then, Daluo said, a little impulsively. Hua Yuao was stunned for a moment. You? Daluo nodded determinedly. I'm about to go crazy being cooped up in the city every day. In fact, he wasn't the only one who thought that way. Almost all of the Daluo Empire's military felt the same way. They were extremely tense waiting for the war to continue. The Sun Moon Empire's military had yet to arrive, but they were still under great psychological pressure. Under such circumstances, all of them were under great stress. Hua Yuao pondered for a moment before saying, all right, I can bring you along. However, you must keep everything that you find out along the way a secret. You can't even tell Xu Yan or your father when you see him in the future. If you promise me this, I'll bring you along. Daluo was stunned. He looked at Hua Yuao's serious face and was puzzled. So serious? Weren't you sent by my father? Why can't I tell him? Seeing the doubt in his face, Hua Yuao said after remaining silent for a moment, let me show you something. After these few days of interaction, he had gained a deeper comprehension of Daluo's character. After weighing the pros and cons, he made a decision. Hua Yuao quickly rubbed his face a few times. Very soon, a thin mask was removed from his face, revealing his true appearance. The original thick-skinned youth had changed completely. Daluo was shocked as he looked at the graceful and slightly handsome-looking Hua Yuao. He sat where he was for some time. Hua Yuao didn't say anything but retrieved a small bowl from his storage-type soul tool. He poured in some clean water before mixing it with some fluid. Water and silver ink. Isn't that what you'd use to see if someone is related to you? What are you doing? Daluo was stunned as he looked at Hua Yuao. Hua Yuao smiled and lifted his head. He looked at him and said, didn't you just describe what I'm doing? As he spoke, he retrieved a needle and poked his finger, dripping a drop of his blood into the bowl. His blood didn't consolidate into one drop as it entered the inky silver water but drifted in it. It seemed completely independent. Hua Yuao passed the needle to Daluo and said, it's your turn. Now, Daluo was in disbelief as he looked at him and asked, you're trying to test if you're related to me. We. Who are you out? Interrupted him. Drip your blood in first. Dalu took a few deep breaths and tried to calm down. Gritting his teeth, he took a few steps to the bowl. He poked his finger with the needle, and a drop of his blood entered the bowl of water. Both drops of blood drifted independently in the water. They were like two ruby pearls. Who are you? Gently shook the bowl, and the two drops of blood drifted closer to one another. Dalu watched the bowl closely. He knew that he was related to Who are you if the two drops of blood fused together. If they weren't related, the two drops of blood would remain separate. The two drops of blood were drawing closer. Dalu subconsciously clenched his fist. He was an intelligent person and naturally knew that Who are you wasn't doing this test for no reason. However, he was still in disbelief. The two drops of blood finally fused with one another. Initially, they only gently touched each other before they bounced away, like two rubber balls. Just when Dalu heaved a sigh of relief and thought this had all been a meaningless game, he suddenly realized that there was a trace of blood connecting the two drops. Before he could react, the two drops fused together rapidly, turning into a bigger drop of blood. Dalu was shocked and snatched the bowl away from Who are you. He brought the bowl up to his eyes and was in a daze when he saw that there was only one big drop of blood left in the bowl. Who are you sat on the bed next to him and revealed a bitter smile. Yes, I'm just like you. We are both sons of that guy. It's just that our mothers are different. I was born 1 year earlier than you, so I'm your biological elder brother. It's a pity that I'm similar to you in another aspect, as I'm also a bastard child. Furthermore, my mother's status is even lower than your mother's. She was only the maid of that person before. When I was small, I also lived in the Duke's mansion. Your mother took great care of my mother. If not for her initial support, I might not even have survived. My mother was always very grateful to her. Even just before she died, she still didn't forget how good your mother was to her. My mother passed away, and I was forced to live with the servants in the Duke's mansion. I lived a treacherous life. It took her great pains to raise me. After that, she contracted a serious disease and never got up after she was kicked by Dalu once. That year, I was only 10. I can't even remember things clearly anymore, because that memory was one of the darkest in my life. After that, I left the Duke's mansion and roamed around on my own. Fortunately, my martial soul is mutated like yours. However, I didn't inherit that person's white tiger, but got my martial soul from my mother. Instead, my martial soul is my eyes. Who are you? Looked at the shocked Dalu and revealed the dim golden light of his spirit eyes. Dalu could clearly see the pupils in Who are you eyes slowly split into two pupils. One pupil was purplish gold, while the other was rose gold. It was extremely strange. Polygoria. This was the greatest peculiarity of the White Tiger's lineage. I hate almost everyone from the Duke's mansion, not including you and your mother. Your mother was the benefactor of me and my mother. This was why I decided to help you after I discovered your identity. Dalu took in a few deep breaths again, and his chest shook tremendously. Are you really my elder brother? Who are you? Pointed at the bowl he was holding. That proves it. Did you join the military because of me? When did you find me? Dalu asked. Who are you? Shook his head and said, No, I didn't join the military because of you. I'm also from the Stalemate Empire. I won't admit that I come from the Duke's mansion, but I belong to the Stalemate Empire. Since the Empire is in trouble, I have a responsibility as a citizen. I became a soldier to protect my nation. I chose to start as a recruit because I want to prove to him that I'm not inferior to him. When I manage to achieve a high ranking in the military through my own merits, I'll personally get everything that the White Tiger Duke owes me. Dalu placed the bowl he was holding to one side and walked a few steps closer to Who are you. The two of them didn't look exactly alike. Who are you's facial lines were gentler, while Dalu's looked older. He resembled the White Tiger Duke more. You want to deal with Dad? Dalu's voice sounded very uncertain. A lost look flashed across Who are you's eyes, but he soon regained his determination. When this crisis is over, and I'm strong enough, I will do so. I'll return to the Duke's mansion and demand justice for my mother. Dalu sat down beside Who are you and softly said, Elder brother. Who are you's body trembled a little after Dalu called him that. Even with his strong willpower, he wasn't able to control his emotions at this moment. His eyes suddenly turned red, and his tears flowed uncontrollably. Who are you stretched his hand out and grabbed Dalu's shoulder. He bit his lips tightly. How much time had passed since he had left the Duke's mansion? All these years, he had no relatives, and treated the Tang Sect and Shrek as his family. However, everyone shared a blood relationship with someone else. Right now, the person sitting beside him and calling him elder brother shared a blood relationship with him. Dalu's eyes turned red when he saw the tears on Who are you's face. Who are you's earlier description had sounded very plain. However, he could tell that Who are you had suffered a lot. A 10-year-old child roamed the world on his own. How did he manage to survive all these years? Soul masters have to hunt and kill soul beasts. He handled all those dangers by himself. Elder brother, how did you manage to survive all these years? Dalu asked curiously. Who are you? Shook his head gently and said, There are some things I can't tell you yet. You'll find out later. I told you about our relationship because I want you to trust me completely. From now on, you need to follow me. I'll make you stronger as quickly as possible. At the very least, you mustn't be worse than Dalu and Dalu. Yes. Dalu nodded. He didn't have a close relationship with Dalu and Dalu. Both of them were legitimate children and went to Shrek Academy when they were young. They didn't really interact with him. On the contrary, it was Who are you's tears that left him moved. Who are you wiped his tears away and put his mask back on. He said, I'm Tang here. Don't tell anyone about my identity or background, especially that person. If you reveal anything, you won't be able to see me again. Do you understand? Dalu was stunned and said, Elder brother, you and father. Who are you? Waved his hand and said, I don't want to make him sound bad in front of you. That's why you shouldn't mention him in front of me. Dalu laughed bitterly. All right, don't worry. I'll keep this a secret for you. Elder brother, are we still going out? Who are you? Said, Yes. I've been feeling a little uncomfortable these past few days. Something must be about to happen. It has been almost 10 days since the Sun Moon Empire breached our border, but they haven't done anything since. This is completely abnormal. Almost all our reinforcements have arrived. Are they trying to fight us in our peak state? Why didn't they exploit the opportunity when we were weaker? This is too weird. It doesn't fit military strategy. Follow me. As he spoke, Who are you left with Dalu and headed towards the city wall. Right now, the sky had already turned dark. After dinner, the city was filled with a rare, relaxed atmosphere. It was just that the defenses at the top of the city wall were still very tight, as enemies could arrive at any time. This was especially true for the western side of the city wall. Dalu whispered to Who are you after looking at the soldiers at the top and bottom of the city wall, as well as the surveillance cell tools. Elder brother, how do we leave? The defense is very tight now to prevent enemies from sneaking in. Who are you? Shook his head and said, Compared to the Sun Moon Empire, our Dalu Empire is far inferior in terms of surveillance cell tools. Such a level of surveillance is completely useless in preventing our enemies from spying on us. Let me tell you, there's a super high aerial surveillance cell tool 3,000 meters above Imperial Radiant City right now. What? Dalu was shocked. A surveillance cell tool 3,000 meters in the sky? Generally speaking, even a titled Douluo couldn't fly more than 1,000 meters into the sky. The higher one flew, the greater he would be drained. Even with a clear sky, it was impossible to see 3,000 meters into the sky. It was already quite commendable if the Dalu Empire's ground-based surveillance cell tools could even see 500 meters into the sky. Who are you outside? This is an industrial level difference. Otherwise, why would the Sun Moon Empire be daring enough to attack 3 empires? They are extremely powerful. Dalu asked, Doesn't this mean that they can monitor our every movement? Who are you? Replied, Just about. However, it's also very difficult to create a high-altitude aerial surveillance cell tool. There aren't many of them in the Sun Moon Empire, and each of them is very costly to produce. This is why they can only keep an eye on some important locations, and the clarity of their surveillance isn't going to be very good. Sun Tzu had once discussed high-altitude aerial surveillance cell tools with Who are you before. As they were too far away, it was very difficult to control them. If any mistakes were made, one might immediately lose control of a high-altitude aerial surveillance cell tool. Furthermore, they were located too far from the ground, and thus lost effectiveness when night fell. They were still considered to be in the experimental stage. Evidently, the Sun Moon Empire wanted to use this war to test these cell tools. Of course, a high-altitude aerial surveillance cell tool was still able to track any large military movements on the ground, even though it wasn't very precise. This was already very useful in a war. Even a titled Douluo wouldn't be able to detect a high-altitude aerial surveillance cell tool from the ground. It was a pity for the Sun Moon Empire that Who are you wasn't any ordinary person. Naturally, it was very difficult for Who are you to fly 3,000 meters into the air, but height didn't affect his spiritual detection. Whenever he was free in the city, he would use his spiritual detection to scan the city for any anomalies. His unidirectional detection had an effective range of 5 kilometers even without his eye of destiny. When he scanned the sky, he was able to detect that high-altitude aerial surveillance cell tool. Should we inform the military? They can think of a way to bring that surveillance cell tool down. Dalu, I said. Who are you? I shook his head and replied, there's no need to. We can do it ourselves. Haven't you flown before? I'll let you experience what it's like to soar in the sky. Dalu, I didn't even have 4 rings yet and couldn't use flying type cell tools. Naturally, he hadn't flown before. Before he could even react, Who are you? I placed one hand under his armpit, and Dalu, I felt the light around him distorting slightly. He and Who are you? Rose up and quickly flew into the sky. He almost shouted because it was too sudden. Elder brother, you are too brazen. We'll be shot down. Dalu, I tried his best to suppress his voice as he spoke to Who are you? He was shocked when he turned around to look at Who are you? This was because there was no flying type cell tool on his back. This meant that Who are you? Was propelling them through his own soul power. What did this mean? It meant that Who are you? Was at least a soul sage. Elder brother, are you really only 1 year older than me? Dalu, I was almost speechless. A 19-year-old soul sage. This is too unbelievable. Who are you? Smiled and replied, yes. Didn't you see my original appearance? Do I look that old? Daluolai's eyes brightened. Elder brother, you're a genius. Who are you? Recalled Shrek's motto and answered, no, I'm a monster. At this point, Daluolai realized that there wasn't any reaction from Imperial Radiant City. There was no sign of any attacks directed towards the sky. However, he didn't know why nothing was happening. I specialize in spiritual power. My martial soul is my eyes. It's spiritual type martial soul. I have a soul skill that can conceal me. It's like cloaking my body. I've already cloaked us and hidden our auras. They won't discover us. Who are you? Patiently explained to his younger brother. Daluolai was enlightened. He looked down and realized that the city was becoming smaller and smaller from their point of view. However, he couldn't sense any air currents flowing against him. It was very exciting. It feels really good to fly. I must work harder. Once I obtain 4 rings, I can finally use flying type soul tools. Daluolai said excitedly. Who are you? Chortled. It's exciting, right? It's very exciting. The feeling of flying is extremely good. Daluolai replied sincerely. Who are you? Said, there are even more exciting things. I'll tell you about them later. As he spoke, he opened his butterfly wings and flew even higher into the sky. They were already beyond the region that the surveillance soul tools in Imperial Radiant City could detect. It was fine for Who are you to use his flying type soul tool now. Given his abilities, it was impossible to fly up to 3,000 meters in the air, especially since he was carrying another person right now. Details of Imperial Radiant City had become extremely tiny by now. In the dark, they even slowly disappeared. Everything around them was pitch black now. They didn't feel any air flowing against them, either. Daluolai felt like everything was a bit unreal. It was like he had entered another world under Who are you's guidance. It took some time to fly 3,000 meters into the air. Who are you discovered that his soul power was being drained more and more after he crossed the 1,000-meter mark. Fortunately, he had the help of his flying type soul tool. However, the soul power in his flying type soul tool would also be greatly drained the higher he went. With the help of a few milk bottles, Who are you managed to keep up with the amount of soul power that was being drained. However, they rose at a slower speed because of it. Who are you's spiritual power had long locked onto that high-altitude aerial surveillance soul tool. The complexity of this soul tool meant it qualified as a Class 8 soul tool. It could be controlled from afar and remain in the air for surveillance at an extremely high altitude. This was definitely the future developmental direction of surveillance. After more than 10 minutes, Who are you finally brought Daluolai in front of this surveillance soul tool, which was the current highest technological standard. This high-altitude aerial surveillance soul tool was like a huge ball. The bottom was made using synthetic quartz, while there were 4 metal sails on the top of it, which helped to balance it in the air. There were 12 milk bottles installed into these 4 sails. These milk bottles were used to replenish the soul power being drained by this soul tool. When this soul tool flew along, these sails were retracted. After it reached its location, these sails would then open up to balance it. In addition, this soul tool could even adjust its angle and position in the air to deal with inclement weather. The Sun Moon Empire had taken many years to research this, and only completed it after the sealed milk bottles were invented. Otherwise, it couldn't be used long term. Who are you? Smiled, and golden light shone in his eyes. Daluolai immediately saw tremendous, distorted undulations around this surveillance soul tool. This surveillance soul tool didn't emit any light, and thus was almost invisible at night. However, these distorted rays were a dim gold, which made them extremely obvious. Right now, Daluolai could clearly see what this high-altitude aerial surveillance soul tool looked like. Its diameter was only around 2 meters. It started to shake slightly as the distorting rays appeared, as if it was struggling. It was a pity for it that Who are you's spiritual power had reached the concrete material realm, and he was using his spiritual interference. This soul tool struggle was futile. Who are you quickly rushed forward. As he dragged Daluolai with one hand, he used his other hand to quickly tap the surveillance soul tool a few times. The sealed milk bottles were quickly pulled from the soul tool, and Who are you put them in his storage type soul tool. After all 12 sealed milk bottles were taken out, the soul tool lost power. All soul power undulations disappeared, and it only managed to remain in the sky because of its sails. Who are you pulled out his starlight sapphire storage type soul tool. The sapphire flashed brightly before the entire high-altitude surveillance soul tool was stored away in his storage type soul tool. Daluolai mouth was gaping. He thought to himself, what did my elder brother do? Not only is his cultivation shocking, but even his familiarity with soul tools is astounding. He had no idea how to react. He would have attacked the surveillance soul tool and destroyed it. Who are you couldn't bear to destroy it. It was a technologically advanced Class 8 soul tool. He would take it back for teachers to research it. By researching it, they could expedite their research into their own high-altitude aerial surveillance soul tools by 10 years. Who are you hadn't been wasting time over these past few days. From the city, he had scanned this surveillance soul tool with his spiritual detection a few times. He had also discovered the key points about it. If he hadn't used his spiritual interference to break its connection to the Sun Moon Empire, it would have been able to automatically release a Class 7 protective soul barrier to protect itself. When that happened, it would most certainly shrink rapidly before escaping. It wasn't that the Sun Moon Empire's protective measures weren't tight or secure enough. It was just that they had met someone like Who are you who could use his imitation to hide from them. Elder brother, why did you keep it? Daluolai asked curiously. Who are you said, for research purposes, of course. I'm not just a soul master, I'm a soul engineer too. Oh yes, didn't you think that flying was very exciting earlier? Do you want something even more exciting? Daluolai was excited as he asked, what's more exciting? This. Who are you smiled and relaxed his grip on Daluolai's armpit. Before Daluolai could even react, he was already free-falling. Everything happened too suddenly, and Daluolai wasn't prepared at all. His tragic screams echoed in the sky, and he was extremely frightened as he felt a strong sense of weightlessness. Who are you continued to drift where he was, and wore a smile on his face. He muttered to himself, oh, not bad. The strength of his spiritual power soars when he's fearful. This has further increased the mutation of his martial soul. The feeling of free-falling was extremely exciting. It was so exciting that Daluolai tightened his lower abdomen, and felt he was about to wet his pants. He unwittingly unleashed his martial soul. The strands of white fur on his body were exuding a dim red glow, while the king on his forehead turned blood red. His tragic screams stopped as he unleashed his soul power with all his might, hoping to reduce the speed of his descent. After he lost Who are you's protection, he truly understood why it was so dangerous to be so high up in the sky. The temperature in the sky was much lower than on the ground. The sinister chill and unknown darkness left him terrified. More importantly, he had no way of reducing the speed of his descent. Given his current cultivation, he couldn't control his soul power to reduce the impact of his fall. Why? Why do you have to harm me like this? Why? Daluolai slowly revealed a desperate look in his eyes. He hadn't expected this to be the way he was going to die. Just as his mind was going completely blank, he felt his body becoming lighter, and the strong air currents rushing against him as he descended disappeared. The intense chill that he felt also vanished. A hand had grabbed his armpit, and he was drifting in the sky once again. Exciting! A gentle voice sounded in his ears. Daluolai turned his head and saw Who are you smiling slightly. Daluolai was furious as he roared. Were you trying to kill me? Who are you smiled and replied. Didn't you say you wanted to try something exciting? You're still around 1,000 meters from the ground, but you can't take it anymore. If I caught you just before you hit the ground, wouldn't you even be more unable to handle it? Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.